Welcome, Chakra Collective, to another empowering episode of Chakras and Cusswords, where we blend spiritual insight with a dose of real talk. Whether you're here to deepen your chakra knowledge, explore the cosmos, or you just need a place to vibe with like-minded souls, you're in the right space. Let's dive into today's journey of energy, empowerment, and a little bit of cosmic chaos. I am so glad you're here. Hello. Welcome back, everyone. Hello, the Cosmic Collective enthusiast and all the Chakra Collective enthusiast. Welcome back to Chakras and Cusswords podcast. I'm so glad you are here. Today, we are getting back on the astrology series, and we are getting into the small planetary bodies and asteroids that are definitely given a lot of significance when it comes to the area of astrology. Yes, there are tons of asteroids I could talk about. Will I be able to cover all of them? Not in this lifetime. I mean, in all honesty, I'm just going to cover the ones that I feel like have the greatest influence and also the ones that are the most popular in energies of modern day astrology, and the ones that are believed to really affect the energy of the lifespan and also the human life. So let's get into it. The first one we've already talked about is Chiron, known as the wounded healer. Chiron really represents that area of wounds and the ability to heal through our experiences. It also gets really emphasized and highlights the areas of life where we may experience pain, but also we regain and also gain a strength and an area of wisdom. Chiron's placement in your chart can reveal where you have unresolved issues, pain, conflict, or may feel vulnerable. It's also an energy that sometimes we see as a healing journey, an area where you learn more. And to learn more about Chiron, that is one of the ones that I dedicated a whole podcast to. So make sure you check out the understanding of Chiron, the wounded healer, and also the meditation that goes with it. So that is its own episode. Dive into it if you definitely want to learn more about Chiron. Ceres is a smaller alignment of energy. It's kind of seen as the biggest asteroid out of the ones that come after Chiron. It is also the first asteroid that was ever discovered, and it was discovered on New Year's Day of 1801, and it is the largest that we have discovered. It was also named after the Roman earth goddess of earth and agriculture and also areas of grains. It's associated with nourishing, like a nourishing nature, motherhood, and it cycles through the area of life. It also has a representation of harvest, with a lot of people believe that that energy cycles life. The Greek name of this earth goddess is Demeter, which, as the goddess of harvest and natural process of fertility and renewal, it has that energy that we see in relationships. It also represents that energy of how we care for ourselves and others. So we kind of feel like it has like a nurturing vibe. It kind of reminds me of that Cancer and Virgo aspect, like a smaller but combined version of the two planets we see in this smaller asteroid. It also has a relationship with food, the body, and earth. So it is believed to have an energy where it has been kind of like the co ruler of the moon. So Cancer is the ruler, but this is the co-ruler. So this is like the baby Cancer. If you were to think of it in the energy of zodiacs, it kind of resembles that energy of, like I said, Cancer and the motherhood, as well as the sign of Virgo, and growing into the area of where Western astrologers began to kind of focus on what Ceres is doing. All four of the major asteroids that we're going over that could definitely are considered co-ruling Virgo, they all have this representation of the feminine, and therefore they could be seen as more of a lunar process of diving into the energies of the feminine. It's also seen to be like a position or a planetary aspect that is tied into not just nurturing and areas, but how we can also manifest with food complexes. So sometimes we might see that area of like the parental energy, and then also areas of how food kind of intertwines. Is there a space where people are having a symbolization of how they have to protect and also survive and nurture and nourish their younger offspring, right? The children of the family. So we kind of see that energy tied into as well. I think a lot of it has to do with the symbolism of food and grain. um, when it's strongly placed, the energy symbolizes the ability of responsibilities of the parental unit, and especially with the female subjects, especially in a female birth chart, we'll tend to see that. And how the close relationship of the earth, we also see that energy of grounding. I also feel like Ceres has like this nostalgic approach. Like whenever I see series kind of like have this big aspect or direct alignment, it kind of feels like nostalgic. It feels like that nuclear family, that nuclear woman who was like super domesticated. She was able to like iron her husband's clothes and like make sure there was like a meatloaf out on the table for the kids. It just felt very like retro and nostalgic, but it has that energy where it's placed with whatever house it's in and the sign. We don't see many astrologers talk about it too much in the energy of asteroids in the birth chart, but it does have a significance, especially on the collective. When this energy has a shift or a movement, it is one of the asteroids that I do cover, and it indicates that expression, sometimes of dealing with loss and grief, but also more on a self care substance and more on an area of the individual practice. Not necessarily as strong as Chiron, but a little bit more subtle with like self care. And if you're doing all the things, how do you relate it back to giving back the energy to you? So it does have that energy of like the domestication that we definitely see with the feminine process and the feminine lifespan. So the second major asteroid that we are covering is Pallas, also short for Pallas Athena, which was discovered right around 1802. So we're going to cover the four major asteroids, which is Ceres, Pallas, Juno, and Vesta. Those are the ones that you guys are really going to hear a lot of. And then we will also look at the center of other asteroids and little clusters of stars and areas of mythology that are very popular and do get a lot of recognition in the astrology world. But for the Pallas, that energy is very much synchronized with the area of the women's movement right around the 19th century. it's also seen to have a lot of energy that is representation of like a fresh, new perspective. And also the name, so the name Pallas Athena was very, very much centered off of wisdom and welfare, also warfare. So also that energy, like Pallas Athena reminds me of like that warrior woman, that area of something that is very much like strong and significant, kind of not necessarily the dual opposite of Ceres, but it does have a different energy where it feels more kind of like dominant. Like she's not here to find the food for her offspring. Like she's here to conquer and get down and right and like gain her divine presence in the area of the life. Also, this energy is a representation of being born from the god Zeus, and it reminds us that kind of like our lineage symbolizes our own strength. Like if I feel like sometimes with the modern person, with the modern energy, that if you were born like with somebody who's kind of like a dominant masculine energy, it could go like two ways. That person either lets you learn your own power and your own areas of dominance, or that person kind of sets you back in some ways. Like it kind of makes you a little bit shy, right? The energy symbolized by the owl and the snake. So she was born from the head of Zeus, okay? And she symbolized the owl and the snake. Pallas Athena was powerful in the area of independence and also the area of wisdom and ancient mythology. She did not really become aligned with any man or any god. She was like her own structure of strength. So she was definitely like a baddie. Like there was no representation of like my man, my man, my man. She's like, no, this is me and I'm here to rule. So definitely a different energy. The energy of the warrior, that spirit, that area of bravery. When we look at it in the chart, it can have an approach of problem solving and also sense of justice, the ability to balance and reason with the energy of emotions. So it's definitely an area that felt aligned also with the area of art, the significance of plastic art and also like sculptures and poetry and the energy of one's divine creative experience and using that divine energy to create. It kind of feels to me, you know, they all have that energy of where it has a significance with Virgo, which is really much like centered around that goddess energy. So a lot of time I always say like Virgo is like the goddess energy when we look at the four asteroids, but it is really centered around that area of independence and creating and having that strength, that warrior strength. So it is a little bit different. Each of the four major bodies of asteroids do have a huge significance when you look at it in the chart. I know most people don't usually look at too much of the asteroid placements in the chart, but especially if like you're going through something, it wouldn't hurt to look at where are the energies, and especially if it's centered around feminine energy, where is the energy of these four asteroids in the birth chart? Where is that energy of these planetary bodies kind of transitioning over? Because sometimes together it's a cluster, especially when we see it with other bigger planetary planets or bigger significance. We'll see the energy of maybe some individual picking up strengths in certain aspects that they forgot they had. So, especially if you're like going through something, I would definitely look at the asteroids in the chart, or even if the asteroids had a huge significance. So, when I do the astrology series, I usually talk about like what Juno's doing, what Vesta's doing, what Pallas is doing, and what Ceres is doing. So, if they're moving and you know that you're, let's say, Pallas is entering Virgo, and you know that you are a Virgo rising and you have Virgo in the first house, you'd be looking at that significance of how is it centered around that representation of independence, and how are you moving forward in your independence and your approach of problem solving, your sense of balance, and your ability to reason with emotional and also logical understanding. A lot of us are tied into emotions, right? I know I get tied into emotions, but looking at that energy of why you might be feeling so emotional, especially like if Pallas was entering, let's say you have a moon sign of Taurus, and now you're feeling a really centered around how can I balance my emotions, or maybe you're feeling like that energy of creativity has been lacking, you would also kind of want to look at what some of these asteroids are doing. So let's talk about Juno. So Juno symbolizes that energy of marriage in the big stance. Juno was the third of the four major asteroids to be discovered, and it was discovered in 1805. And it was definitely in the scene of the 19th century again, which seems to have the representation of the feminine energy, the feminine spirit, the divine feminine. And this energy really symbolized that space of marriage and unity. So it's named after the Roman goddess of marriage. Juno is associated with commitment, partnerships, and balancing the power of relationships. It reflects the themes that we see in energies of commitment, loyalty, and equality. So it is kind of the energy and the search for a soulmate. Sometimes people will look to see what Juno is doing. Where is Juno in the chart for that soulmate energy? It does have that feminine spirit in the energy of movement towards commitment, towards unity, and also having a life partner. So it's not independent. It's, well, it is independent, but it is not a solo ship rider, like nomad, like Pallas Athena. And it's not as nourishing as Ceres. It's more filled on the equality of union. So it isn't like that overly caring energy. It isn't like that overly independent energy, but it is kind of like a smooth commitment to the middle, right? Like where you stand in the middle. Like, and I feel like we see that with relationships. We can't have one that's too dominant and one that's too lax, right? In mythology, Juno, the Greek Hera, was the wife and the energy, the consort, the equal partner to Jupiter. And therefore, in astrology, of Juno represents the partnering energy of relationships, that energy of commitment, that intimate relationship, right? That passionate, that beautiful relationship. And there's also a territory of Venus and the moon that plays in, but where Juno seems to differ in this area of representation of partnerships is the energy of a new light, and also more seen in modern issues where energies of boundaries with the other person may have a need to look at. And there's much of like a energy of equalization that feels appropriate. So it feels aligned where it feels like both individuals are able to give a significance when seeking a partner, right? Juno's placement in the chart can reveal where your attitudes towards marriage and commitment is in relationship, including what you seek in that individual, what you seek in that partner, and what you feel fulfilled with in the union. It also has a area when Juno is prominent in the natal chart. All of these types of issues are important to the individual. So, for instance, like let's say Juno is with Aries, it might feel like a little bit centered off bitterness, or maybe there could be some jealousy tied in. And Juno does have that representation. It makes us think about some of the issues that arise in relationships where we shouldn't be so fiery, we shouldn't be so jealous. It is that center of how much sharing, how much of the other do we let, of ourselves do we let the other see. So there could be issues of bitterness, jealousy, could also be projected by areas of control, especially if Juno is like, let's say with Saturn, it's right aligned in that energy, or maybe has like a maybe it has like a area where it's in the same house that Saturn is. We might see that. So it definitely has that area that feels like it's tied into the relationship that affects the feminine. But it's also a good area to look at if you are a masculine energy or your gender is male, because it does play a significance in how you might approach the area of commitment in certain relationships, especially with the opposite. If Juno is in an aspect with another planet, Juno's position by the house in the sign is also an indication of the area of life where these issues will be the most important. So, for instance, let's say you're going through your Saturn return, because that's the one that scares everybody. You're going through your Saturn return, and we see the areas of responsibility, and then you have an aspect with Juno. You're really going to see it structured around areas of marriage, relationships, and also connections with the soulmate. And that area will reveal to you what feels appropriate as a union, as a forever relationship, as a soulmate connection. Let's get into Vesta. So, Vesta is the last of the four major asteroids to be discovered in 1807. The mythology around Vesta is centered around one of the sisters of Jupiter and Juno. So Vesta chose to remain a virgin. Okay, she wasn't just going to give her cookies away for nothing, and to remain a virgin, and she never was married. So Vesta to me, it kind of reminds me of like that innocence, also that energy of like the virgin, that area of movement that feels more of a space. She does have a space of purity. It kind of reminds me of like the old like Greek mythology, where it's like the pure being, the white energy light, and the area of it kind of reminds me of like the energy of like your first communion, like especially with the big church and growing up like Catholic. It reminds me of like that area of like devotion. You know, you're marrying yourself to God, or you're marrying yourself to like your spiritual beliefs. Kind of like that nun energy. Definitely high in the area of universe alignments if it's devotion to being a monk, or if it's devotion to being a nun or a priest. But it's like the sacrifice of the passion, the sacrifice of the fire, when we think about it like that, of that energy of what it is that brings passion, and how do we suppress that? So Vesta is named after the Roman goddess of hearth and home. So it does feel, I mean, I don't know. I guess what would you want your home like to be like? No representation of passion anywhere or fire, but okay. And it's the importance of like that ancient time, like I said, the ancient purity or purity, I think is a word. And it also has energy of hospitality, vitality of the home or the city. Her astrological symbol is the flame. So even though she's very pure, and I feel like with astrology, we see this duality of fire, pure, like how the Virgo is domestication, the domestic goddess, or the whore, Gemini, the twins. We tend to see that energy kind of play out in astrology where we see duality because we are all a sense of duality, right? Good, bad, sinner, worshiper. Like we see it, right? Because we have to remember that we're all a mixture of both, right? We're all a mixture of both these things at some point. We can't all be good. We can't all be bad, but we are all a little bit of a mixture. So she is definitely centered around the being the purest, being the brightest, even though she has a flame in her. She's, ooh, don't wake that flame, baby. It's interesting because Vesta is the brightest of the four asteroids, and her symbolism also is the Virgin. So it is that really like, how do we see this? How do we see this Virgin, this fiery Virgin? It's like when you think about having all this passion, you're like, down, down, calm down. You're supposed to be a little virgin, but the hormones are raging. It reminds me of, it kind of reminds me of like, I spoke of like the first communion. It kind of reminds me of like that rage, that that rage that you feel when you're like 15. Your hormones are flying. That area of like, oh, you just want to go out there. My mom used to always be like, you little fucking whore. You just want to be out there in the streets, or you just want to be out there, being bad. Obviously, you're not an adult, so you're supposed to be pure. You're supposed to be good. You're supposed to be the virgin. But sometimes the hormones are raging. And if there weren't hormones are raging, we might not have so many teen pregnancies. We also have to remember that people were getting married at super young ages. I'm not saying I think it's a good thing. I'm just saying that is the human experience. It kind of gives me that like Lolita vibe, right? Ooh, bad, very promiscuous, fiery virgin. So, this energy, when we look at it, it's definitely conflicting. And I think it does have a service in the chart that serves us in areas of representation of devotion, spiritual commitment, especially when we look at it in energies of union, and also that sacred fire that drives us towards our goal is also linked to themes of service, sacrifice, and focus. So, like the hospitality that's aligned with it, like when we're traveling to a city, there's different cultures, there's different energy. Like, it kind of reminds me of that energy of like not letting the young girl feeling like she has to hug the creepy uncle when we think about it in areas of certain themes of hospitality. Like that is kind of like a huge thing for me. Like I personally, the older I get, like I personally do not like to be touched. Especially if I don't fucking know you. Do you know what I mean? Like friends at work, like, okay, I'll give you a hug. Okay, yeah, when it's appropriate. But and it could be female and it could be male, but like if you don't fucking know me, back the fuck up. I don't know. It's just like, okay. But then that energy also feels aligned with like hospitality. Oh, especially in the Latin culture, like the hugging, everybody getting a kiss on the cheek, the Italian, everybody kissed everybody. Fuck. Um, Kissing cousins, you know what I'm saying? So it just kind of feels like, but to the own energy of there might be that sexual nature that, but they are remained untouched, right? So we have that energy of sexual intimacy from the person, from the other person, but like don't touch them. In energy with mythology, the asteroid Vesta is involved with both signs Virgo and Scorpio. So, right there, when it ties into Scorpio, the unhidden, that energy of the dark, the energy of the mythology behind the Scorpio, that almost like deviant, that deviant nature kind of resembles it and comes up. In astrology, Vesta is in the individual chart as areas of issues with sexuality, and also of ones that might feel very dominant and not so dominant of the self. Also, possible associations with women or men who choose not to have a mate, who decide, you know what, I'm not doing this Juno energy. I'm gonna be left the fuck alone. I want to have, a devotion of being not tied down to one person or not with one person, or maybe it's more on a spiritual aspect. The possible association could be centered around the nun or the monk, like I talked about, and also the energy of like what quote unquote is the normal family, what is the normal relationship. That area also, we see a lot of areas of energy around sexuality and serving the process of self and also others. So, when Vesta is prominent in the chart, there may be issues with purity, singleness, and the energy of sexuality, or the area of like abstinence, of refraining from sex, one also involving oneself with multiple partners, which yet leaves the individual feeling like they're untouched by relationships. So this necessarily wouldn't be somebody who's always a virgin. Like I said, there's really like that two sides that come with Vesta. So it's like you have the individual who maybe just does not want to tie down, like they're out running the street. They're made for the streets, some might say. But then you also have that individual who's like, ugh, I don't want those energy connections. I don't want those soul ties. So I'm not hooking up with everybody. And then, like, you know, you ever hear, you gotta knock the dust off that thing, you and then it's like, okay, they have a relationship, or it's like giving 40-year-old virgin, not version, virgin. So when we look at the area placement of Vesta by the house and the sign, it indicates that life where these issues may arise, and also where areas of spiritual beliefs will arise, where you might need to balance that energy. So it is the last of the four major asteroids. We're going to talk about some of the smaller ones, not in great detail, but just an oversight. So we have Eris. which is symbolized after the name of the Greek goddess of strife and discord. Eris is associated with disruption. It is rebellious, challenging the status quo. To me, it feels almost like that higher righteous, almost like that big protester. It likes conflict. It kind of reminds me of Uranus and Uranus. It has that area of transformation that can occur. So it kind of reminds me of that energy of like Uranus, and also that's individually of Pluto in some aspects. It does have that representation of being discovered right around the 21st century, parallel, paralleling to the discovery of Pluto in the 20th. So it does have kind of like that injustice, where we're going to look at the injustice energy and we're going to talk about it. It does feel like it has that placement in the chart where it may show the power struggles of where you feel and you need to fight for certain injustices, certain areas of fairness. And these energies do really like stand out when you see like major events with the collective, especially with Eris and then like let's say Pluto. So it's definitely one that you do want to look up if you feel like something is happening that feels a little bit dark. This archetype represents the energy of struggle and survival in the natural process. And it also has representations of Pluto and Chiron in a darker side of humanity. And I guess it's like the one that you see when you feel like there's a powerful and ruthless stance in you. Like I said, it feels like your fighter asteroid, your fighter alignment. And these celestial bodies add energy to the astrological interpretation. So, of course, the planets are the most dominant. But when we see these little asteroids, these astrological alignments, it's definitely something that will give us a subtle but also a significant understanding of the individual's chart, and also collective experiences that the collective can be going through. One of the stars I want to talk about is known as the demon star, or Algol, which is the star that a lot of people said President Trump had some type of aligning with right around his attempted assassination, that it was transitioning, I believe, over his either like his rising or his energy of the 10th house. I can't really remember, but I know it's on the breakdown of his chart. I talked a little bit about it. So the demon star in astrology is referred to as Algol. Algol. It's one of the most infamous fixed stars, and it is named and derived mostly from the Arabic word al-Ghul, which means the ghoul or the demon. Al-Ghul is a part of the constellation of Perseus, and is known as the Vesta Parisi in in astrology, astronomy. Well, astrology. I'm over here just making up fucking words in more of astronomy terms. So in astronomy, it's Beta Parisi. In astrology, it's known as Algol. So it is something you do see in the chart, but it is definitely something that you would have to look at. It is not in most charts. So if you are getting like your chart read on, I think it's like AstroSeek or Astro Charts, you would definitely hit to see the asteroids for a lot of these smaller bodies. The background that goes with it is Algol is a binary star system located about 90 light years away from Earth, but is still thought to have a correlation with us in energies of eclipsing binary, meaning that one star periodically possesses in front of the other. It passes and like almost engulfs the energy. It passes from one star to another, causing the star's brightness to dim. So it is like almost seen like almost like an energy vampire. Let's say Algol is like passing in front of Juno. It's like taking away the shine away, the brightness from Vesta, right? This energy, this variability of energy and brightness has to do with energy of like ancient times, the energy of the reputation of something in the sky, dark, taking away from the other stars. So dimming the brightness. It reminds me of that energetic vampire when I think about it after I've kind of learned a little bit more about it. In astrology, Algol is considered one of the most dangerous and also magnificent in the areas of extreme violence. It is associated with violence and extreme danger and misfortune. It's not a good time. And there is areas of influence. The violence and destruction that Algo is often linked to is themes of death, decapitation, and extreme physical harm. This association comes from the mythology and the connection from the Medusa energy, whose head was severed by Perseus and placed in the sky as part of the constellation. So it has that energy of decapitation when we look at the mythology of Medusa. It is an intense, strong, deviant power. Despite its negative energy, Algo also represents intense power and raw energy. This energy can be destructive. So it almost feels like it almost feels like great power, great achievement, but what do you destroy to get there? It is harnessed by achievements and is controlled, and it should be controlled very wisely. There's a lot of curses and taboos when we look at Algol. It is connected to themes of curses. So if you were to look in the chart, maybe situations just have not been going well, and you look and you see Algos there, you're like, ah, fuck. Ah, fuck. Especially if like it's in line with the air sign. Like air signs are already fucking klutzes. Like they're just a klutz. And then if you put Algo in there, you're like, ah, shit. Somebody fucking hexed me on a Wednesday. Like the curses and the hexes and the breaking the taboos can indicate situations where one faces severe consequences for their actions. So Algos kind of like has that karmic tie alignment that goes against the social and moral norms. So if you're not scared of the energy of curses, so the energy of curses and taboos are definitely aligned with Algol. We see it. The moral norms, right? What's moral? Well, I mean, we all have that sense of morality, but definitely seeking outside of morality, and like when we're testing the waters of alliances and energies of spiritualism and energies of darkness, right? Evilness, that fine teeter. It also has a transformation and like a purging aspect when we look at it. One more, which is like a one more positive note for Algo, can symbolize the process of purging or transformation through facing one of our darkest fears. And it kind of reminds me of like Chiron in some energy of moving forward after being wounded, but it challenges the individual to confront the demons in their life. So, not just like trauma, but the actual demons that are in their lives and that emerge and become stronger. So, the mythology and the connection, Algol being associated with the myth Medusa, is one of the three Gorgon sisters in the Greek mythology, where Medusa was one of the beautiful maidens who was transformed into a monster with snakes for her hair. Anyone who looked directly at her turned into stone. And we see that energy with Algol, the area of almost like looking in the evil or looking in the monster demonic energy. The hero, Perseus, was able to slay Medusa by using a mirrored shield. So he used this mirror shield to avoid her deadly gaze. After her death, her head was placed in the sky, becoming the star Algol. When Algol is prominent in the natal chart, such as being conjunct with a planet or a significant angle, like the ascendant or the midheaven, it can indicate potential challenges related to those themes of the celestial sign that it is also in, and also the house placement. However, it also offers the opportunity for power transformation. And if one is centered around negative energy, we might see the awareness and the care and opportunity to create that transformation and look at our demons in the eye and conquer them. Algol, the demon star, is a very powerful and complex fixed star in astrology. While it carries associations with danger and destruction, it also embodies the potential of transformation, overcoming and confronting our demons. Another one of the celestial bodies that a lot of us hear a lot about is the dark Lilith or the dark moon Lilith, often referred to the black moon Lilith in the astrological point, representing a specific aspect of the lunar orbit. While not an actual physical body, its influence in astrology symbolizing deep, primal, and often shadowy aspects of the self. It also has this energy where the dark moon Lilith is known to have that area of mythology, of rebellious nature, the independent woman. It seems like modern astrology has really tried to kind of make the dark moon Lilith like this energy of untamed, raw, primal, feminine, the divine feminine, the dark archetype of divine femininity. Also dealing with the themes of power, sexuality, and the darker side of our psyche. It feels like that dominatrix in us. It feels like that area where maybe the feminine is urging the masculine to suppress, to become more submissive. It also has that experience that represents the desires, the taboo topics, the part of ourselves that defy the social norms. So it's not necessarily an evil demonic energy, but it's more tied into the dark feminine, the energy of the rebellious independent woman. You know what's interesting is when I look at, there was a big part of me that, like, when Kanye West got with Bianca Censori, when he married her. Okay, first of all, I think Kanye West is a little bit off the rocker, as one might say. He's a little bit off the rocker. And he definitely, the fact that we know he has mental issues, why do so many of us are so intrigued by him? But we are, right? He is very brilliant when you look at areas of art and areas of music, and he is very talented. But there are some topics that are very taboo that he does. He definitely pushes a lot of social norms. And Bianca, she reminds me of that dark moon Lilith energy, very sexual. At a lot of time, we're like, oh, her family thinks that he's controlling her. Oh my gosh. It just feels so raw. It just feels so unfiltered. It just feels so untamed. Is she okay? It's like blink twice if you need help, Bianca. But in all honesty, this might be her own significant power. This might be her own significant area of freedom. It's like everybody loves that dark feminine until that dark feminine black moon Lilith is in your fucking face with her titties out, her ass out, all of it out. And she's basically saying, does this make you uncomfortable? And for a lot of people, they're like, yes, it makes me very uncomfortable. Oh God, it makes me very uncomfortable. But that is that energy of the dark moon Lilith. That is that energy that we see. The power of independence, autonomy in Lilith's placement of the natal chart can indicate where where you fucking demand freedom. You demand that independence. And this is where we see not every feminine energy is right for every masculine energy, right? That area of sexuality, that area of dominance. There is some, like for other people, there is some energy that a lot of women may feel like they suppress that dark moon Lilith. I know for me, I did like this little TikTok. It's like so funny because I related to TikToks when I did this little TikTok. I did one and I was like, oh yeah, this is IG approved. Like I could share this one on IG. And then the other one, I'm like, this is definitely only Instagram. I mean, this is like only for Instagram, right? It's like very tamed, it's very mild, right? Facebook friendly, Instagram friendly, check. And then the other one, like TikTok, where I feel like not that many people who I actually know follow me, right? I mean, I'm sure some do, but I try not to follow because I feel like on IG, I have my kids, on Facebook, my kids and my mom, it's like, fuck. Yeah. They're like, Mom. And for me, I want my kids to be comfortable with me as much as possible, right? I don't want to, I don't want my dark Lilith energy out there too much. For me, I am a mom, and that is my number one priority. For other women, that area of empowerment might be their energy a priority of their independence, of their authentic stance on where they stand on certain rebellious natures. That energy of sexuality and desire, Lilith is often associated with sexual energy, particularly the kind that is non apologetic. And that's what kind of reminds me of the Bianca Sensori. Like everybody's like, is she okay? Is she okay? Is she like in a relationship that is abusive? Is Kanye making her? And then when you see videos of her like in her natural form, like where it looks like she's not paying attention and people are like recording, it looks like she's fine with it. Like she's like, whatever. You also see she kind of dresses down when she's with the Northwest. Like she kind of like dresses, she's not like got it all out. She's not fully in her black Lilith, but it's definitely not apologetic. Madonna kind of reminds me of that black Lilith energy. Dark, very, dark, like when she did her erotica book, like a prayer, especially for that time, that dark Lilith energy. It's about embracing one's full, raw sexual nature that is often linked to desires and the energy of taboo. That energy we don't talk about too much. Shadow work. Lilith is also connected with shadow work, acknowledging and integrating the dark aspects of your personality, dealing with themes of like jealousy, revenge, anger, and other intense emotions, typically that are normally suppressed. We see that area kind of get awoken with the dark Lilith. We see that energy of the rebellion. Like it's almost like I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling intense, I'm feeling very deviant. It's like kind of like that energy of somebody hurting you, and then you go and sleep with his best friend. That's the dark moon. The rebellion and resistance. It's like, oh fucker. It has that revengeful nature to it. Um, a lot of times, the dark moon Lilith will be suppressed, especially in energies of sexuality, until the woman, the area of the feminine, is on an emotional roller coaster or is getting that emotional independence back, that area of asserting one's own identity. It's about standing up for who you are, your rights, and how you feel like you should be treated, even in means going against certain areas of the normal society's grain, the grid, going against the grid, man. Black Moon Lilith is all about it. There are actually 3 different points in the chart that are associated with Lilith. There's the Black Moon Lilith, which is the most common, and that represents the lunar apogee of the furthest point of the moon's orbit from Earth. We also have the asteroid Lilith, a Pacific asteroid named Lilith, offering a slightly different influence, more focused on relationships and the feminine experience, not as dark and bad as Black Moon Lilith. And the Dark Moon Lilith is an obscure hypothetical point representing a second shadow moon orbiting Earth. It's less commonly used, but is associated with even a deeper or more hidden aspect of the psyche. So in astrology, dark Lilith, dark moon Lilith, is seen as that intense, raw aspect of the feminine and Lilith's energy, diving into the darkest corners of our subconscious and our energy of our psyche. We have to remember that in energies of Lilith, of the mythology, she was the first wife of Adam. And then she basically wrestled that fucker down on the ground and was like, I get on top. I'm woman. Fucking hear me roar, bitch. And he's like, whoa, whoa. No, no, no. I'm man and I'm all about missionary. And she's like, no. And he's like, God, God, please take back this Satan deviant woman who wants to rule and master my world. And then God, we don't really know what happened to Lilith. Some believe she was the one who enticed the apple to get eaten by Eve. When we get into the areas of Christianity, she's like, eat that bitch. Rock his world. Rock Christianity's world. Rock society's world. Eat that fucking apple. Eve ate the apple. Women were fucked ever since. We then had our periods, and it all went to shit. But on the funner note, Lilith is a badass. I like the dark moon Lilith. I like that energy of the dark feminine, that area of independence that a lot of women kind of hide from. Sometimes we have to tap into our dark moon Lilith, put on a black dominatrix outfit and some fucking 3-inch stilettos, look in the mirror and just remind ourselves we are not the one to be fucked with. The part of fortune, sometimes referred as the pars fortuna, or simply the fortuna, is an important point in astrology that isn't an actual celestial body, but rather a calculated point in the natal chart. It is derived from the positions of the sun, the moon, and the ascendant, and is believed to represent areas in life where one can find luck, happiness, and success. So we often look to the part of fortune when we are done destroying the world with our black moon Lilith. We're going to go and say, how can I repair? The part of fortune symbolizes the part of fortune and fortune, which is often associated with material well being, success, and happiness. It is seen as the point of harmony and balance, the part of fortune, the sun, the moon, the ascendant comes together in ways that bring prosperity and joy and represents our likely in the experience to ease our natural talents can lead to good fortune from the part of fortune or fortune, however you pronounce it. The calculation of this part of fortune is calculated differently depending on whether the person was born during the day, which is the diurnal chart, or at night, which is the nocturnal chart. For day, the part of fortune, the ascendant plus the moon equals the sun. For night, the nocturnal time, the part of fortune equals from the ascendant plus the sun minus the moon. This calculation results in the point of the natal chart that moves through the houses and the signs, reflecting you are most likely to experience areas of growth and success and fortune. So, back when astrologers did math, that would be the degrees and the area of places that they calculated for the part of fortune. Astrological significance, the house placements, the house in which the part falls can indicate the areas of life where you are likely to find success and happiness. For example, if it falls on the 10th house, you could suggest that your career, that area of where it is that you have your greatest success and achievements and recognition. The sign and the placement also plays a huge element to how you show up and express these natural gifts, where you can find your fulfillment. Also, for instance, let's say it's in Leo, again, your creativity, your leadership, that might be the area of success. I would say if it was in the sign of Aries, that area of individuality, that area of you being the one. People want to see more of you. They like you. They like that energy of what you bring. And then also, if you were looking in Gemini, I would say you were probably centered around communication, socialization, where you would see your sex. You could probably run a pretty good collective circle. Also, if you look at where it is in the energy of, like, let's say it's in Aquarius, the collective likes you, but also maybe you're centered on a little bit of technology if you have that Uranus alignment. The aspect of this is from the planets that can modify its influence, embracing where the planets are, enhancing or challenging our abilities to tap into a good point and fortune, a good point of fortune. That's all we want. Interpretation of this is often seen as a guide that can achieve personal commitment and contentment. Are we happy? Are we successful? Are our efforts, our goals, are they rewarded? Can also highlight how you can best align your actions with your true self to create that life abundance. It is considered particularly important in the predictive astrology, So when we're looking at predicting shit, it is considered important, such as the transits that are occurring, the progressions, and the solar returns that the individual of the chart can look at, and where that activation can indicate times when you might experience increased luck or opportunity. So I would think of somebody who had their part of fortune in the alignment of Gemini, and then we have Jupiter in Gemini. You need to look at that fucking house and you need to see what alignments, conjunctions, and sextiles are going to bring areas of path and happiness and success to the place of movement for the individual or for the self. Let's get into the story of the seven star sisters. It is one of my favorite stories in mythology. And it is a beautiful kind of story to close out with of the seven star sisters. So, the story of the seven star sisters is rooted in ancient energy of mythology associated with Pleiades, a cluster of stars that is visible in night. And it is known as the area of inspiration and legend, and it's in many cultures. The energy of the Greek, Native American, and Australian cultures and traditions. The Greek mythology of the seven star sisters of Titan's Atlas and the Oceanid Plinio, the sisters are named Maia, Electra, Taigit, Alpine, Celone, Stereope, Merope. Each sister has its own story and significance. So Maya, the eldest and most beautiful sister, is the mother of Hermes, said Hermes, the messenger god of Zeus. Electra is associated with the city of Troy and the mother of Darnus and the area of the energy of by Zeus, so it was made from Zeus. Tegit is linked to the goddess Armetes and is said to have been transformed into the dough to escape the advances of Zeus. Alcyone, associated with calm seas. She's the mother of Hyrisius by the Poseidon. Celeino is the mother of Lycus and Nicetas by the Pisidian. Sterope, also known as Astrup, is associated with the god of Eris and is said to be the mother of Onimus, the king of Pisia. Merope, the youngest sister, is often associated with mortal affairs, and she was married to Sisyphus, the mortal king. For this reason, her star is sometimes considered the dimmest of the seven. According to the mythology, the seven sisters were placed in the sky by Zeus to save them from the pursuits of the giant Orion, who fallen in love with them. The sisters became stars, and Orion was also placed in the sky as well, where he continues to chase them across the heavens. In Native American mythology, several Native American tribes, such as Navajo and Cherokee, have stories of the seven star sisters, and in these tales, the stars often represent a group of sisters of maidens. For example, the Cherokee believe that the stars are spirits of seven young girls who danced until they were lifted into the sky. Australian culture, the original area of Australian believes that the energy of the seven stars were also important in the Aboriginal culture, where they often seen as a group of young women being pursued by Orion's constellation, which depicted as a hunter or a group of men chasing the young women. Different tribes have their own variations of the seven stars, but in the theme of pursuit and protection is common when we look at the seven star sisters. In Mesoamerican cultures like the Mayans, and the Aztecs. Mesoamerican cultures such as the Maya Aztec civilizations believed that Placidius, also known as the Seven Star Sisters, were also significant, although it is centered around certain energies of myth surrounding them and less detailed as compared to other cultures. But they believe that the Mayan people linked this energy to their calendar system and also the agricultural cycles. The area of the rising of the Seven Star Sisters is visible, and it is centered around the appearance of the dawn sky, was important marker for the calendar and ritual events in the Mesoamerican areas of tradition and in counting days and nights and the entryway of seasons. The Mayans sometimes referred to the Placidius as Tizab, which could be associated with the rattle or the snake, reflecting their connection to fertility and renewal. Aztecs also observed the Seven Star Sisters with a sense of cosmic importance. They believed that the world could end during the new fire ceremony, which occurred um, 52 every 52 years when the Seven Star Sisters reach their zenith at midnight. And we see that Pleiades reaches this energy, and they believed that this was a possible new fire ceremony where the world could possibly end. The continuation of the world depended on the successful completion of this ceremony, during which all fires were extinguished, then symbolizing the renewal and continual energy to continue. Other indigenous interpretations have various from other cultures. The indigenous groups throughout Latin America have their own interpretation of the Seven Star Sisters, often integrating them into agriculture and also astronomical importance and having that piece of spiritual practices. These stories and beliefs, while not always directly centered around the Seven Star Sisters, highlight Placidius as a crucial element in understanding the natural world and the cosmic alignments, and definitely the universe. While the Pacific narrative of the Seven Star Sisters, as seen in Greek mythology, is the most prominent versus the Latin American cultures, that energy does have a significance that it was used in various indigenous groups and religions. These interpretations also are revolved around the themes of agricultural and also the elements of fertility and the cosmic order, reflecting a deeper connection that we all are intertwined with the energy of the elements, the stars, and the spirits and the rhythm of the earth. So we have to remember that the energy of the Mesoamerican cultures, Maya, Aztec, as it does not really talk about it in quote unquote Greek mythology, which is a lot where a lot of people believe that astrology began, but there is a direct correlation of how these practices were centered around movement of the earth, of the element, of the cosmos, of the movement of the cycle of life. When I think of the Seven Star Sisters, I also think of that area of protection and movement that continues to move definitely for each and one of us. And I think that's what the planetary alignments of these small little bodies focus on, that subtle magic, that subtle transition of how we are all divinely connected, from the littlest molecule to the biggest planet, to the area of the biggest star, the sun, how we're all connected as one, regardless of religion, beliefs, and practices. We are all aligned, regardless of race, gender, areas of how we see ourselves, our identity. We are all connected. To look away from the energy that feels so bold and sometimes look at the subtle energy within us. So I want to thank everybody for listening to this podcast, and definitely tune in to the astrology series if you want to listen to the chronological order of the astrology series. It is on the YouTube channel. So please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and also subscribe to Instagram. You can see a chakras underscore cusswords is my personal IG. And also, if you can follow the podcast IG, that would be great. And everybody have an amazing day. Don't forget to like, review, and share this podcast with somebody who is part of your chakra collective and your cosmic collective. Everybody have a great day.